Before the video starts, I just wanted to say that I had a bunch of finals recently this week. That's why I haven't been able to upload. But summer is now right around the corner, so I will be able to upload a lot more frequently. Thank you for your patience. Hello guys, and welcome back to Sinister Stories. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. Instead of talking about well-known events, today I'm going to dive into my personal paranormal experiences. I live in a house that has been known to host a number of paranormal events. Some of these events started when I was much younger, and others a little bit later, some even recent. So sit back, relax, grab a drink, and join me as we dive into deeper and darker stories that are all but too real to me. I will also be splitting up the stories into different segments, that way you can follow along and skip to another story if that's what you wish to do. Story number 1. When I first moved into my house, I was about 2 or 3 years old. While I don't recall a lot of things from that time period since I was very young, there are some things and images that I do remember. I remember my parents telling me when I was a little bit older that when they first moved here, they would hear infants crying. Now, we didn't have a lot of neighbors since the town we moved in was barely developing, and the neighbors we did have we knew very well, and we knew that none of them had babies in their house. According to my parents, the crying would start at around 2 or 3 in the morning and make it almost impossible for them to sleep. They said that if you weren't asleep by around 1, then you would eventually hear the baby crying, which would make sleep almost impossible. Now, while my parents were creeped out about this, they tried to explain it logically. They thought to themselves that maybe somebody was babysitting and nobody was aware of it. Little did my parents know that this was going to be the easiest thing they were going to have to deal with when it comes to paranormal events. A few months after moving in is when I experienced my first paranormal event. I was still very young, and I had recently stopped drinking from a baby bottle. But I didn't want to. I really wanted to continue drinking from my bottle, and it bothered me that my parents were to take it away. After crying a lot and throwing some fits, which toddlers normally do, they decided to give me a little bit more time on my bottle, and they let me drink it. They filled it up, and I grabbed it and went on my merry way to my living room so I can watch TV. And I still remember very clearly to this day, walking into my living room and seeing a woman. And the dress was almost like 1830s Western, kind of. It had a big bump in the back. And I clearly remember her giving me a look straight in my eyes and getting mad at me. And she scolded me for drinking from my bottle and saying that it was going to hurt my teeth. Now, to be honest, anybody scolding me at that age would have probably made me cry. But I didn't recognize this person whatsoever. So that just sent me into shock, and I ran towards my mom. My mom, in a panic, ran at me to see what was wrong. I told her what happened, and we both went to the living room, and there was nobody there. My mom tried to tell me that this was my mind playing tricks on me, and tried to explain to little 2 or 3-year-old me what happened, but I knew what I saw. And even though I don't remember much from that age, I could still always remember that woman, the dress she wore, and what she looked like. Story number 2. After a few years of living in my house, I was about 5 or 6, we got this new neighbor who moved in front of us. Now, my neighbor to my left knew this woman before she moved in there, and she warned us that she practiced witchcraft. She had the whole setup. She did spells, she did rituals, she had candles, she had books, and pretty much everything else that a witch would need. Now, of course, my parents were skeptical about this. They did know my neighbor to my left for a good while, but they thought that maybe it was just rumors, and she didn't know what she was talking about. That is until one day, my new neighbor, we'll call her Mary, decided to come over and knock on our door. Now, of course, we didn't know her, so we answered the door and said hello, being polite, and she had something in her hand. It was a sort of ceramic statue. Now, people in my area speak both English and Spanish usually, but this lady only spoke Spanish. She handed over the statue to my mom and said it was a thank you gift for everyone welcoming her into the neighborhood. She stated how she gave everyone in the neighborhood, or at least the surrounding houses next to hers, a kind of souvenir or a gift. Unfortunately, our gift was a 4-foot Native American statue. Now, the statue was pretty nice. It looked kind of old and weathered, but it was built really well, and the details on it were really good, so we didn't mind it too much. And she would also come over a lot since we babysitted her kid for a while, so it would be really disrespectful if we didn't put up the statue that she gave us. So we decided to put it up in the living room, in the corner. And that's where we all decided to put it because it didn't really disrupt too much. And to be honest, even though it was really nice and really detailed, the statue was a little bit creepy, and it had this look that it seemed like it almost followed you. So we put it in the corner behind the couch where we couldn't see it, and you could only see it from a certain part of the living room. Everything was fine until one day, or one night actually, my dad was watching TV in the living room, and he came into my mom's room almost screaming, saying that the statue tried to talk to him and that he heard a voice coming from the statue. And my dad is a very skeptical person. My dad doesn't believe in stuff like that. He's very serious. He's very stern. He's a nice person, but he's one of those I have to see to believe. He didn't believe my original ghost story, of course. So he's that type of person, and he was just floored. He had no idea what happened, and he was panicking. After discussing this with my mom, she eventually convinced him that it was just him, and it was his mind playing tricks on him. So he kind of forgot about it, and he stopped thinking about it for a while, and it kind of became a thing of the past. Until maybe like 3 or 4 months later, when it happened again. And the second time it happened, my dad was dead serious that I tried to talk to him and that I called his name. So my dad could have been lying for some reason. I don't see a point why he would do it. But ever since that day, he never saw TV in the living room. He avoided that statue at all costs. And me being pretty young and my family kind of joked around with him, and we kind of made it a joke. And I feel kind of bad now because he was really scared of it. He didn't want it in the house, but my mom said that it would be disrespectful if my neighbor came over and didn't see the statue there. So we kept it, and it was kind of the butt of our jokes for a good few months until the statue started moving at night. So we would go to sleep, and the statue would always be in the corner of the living room, like I mentioned earlier. It would never move. And there would be times where we would wake up in the morning and the statue would be in another section of the living room. And there were even some cases where it was in the kitchen. And my house it's not too big and it's not too small, but my room is positioned in the middle of the house almost. So I can hear if anyone's in any certain place. So if someone's in the kitchen, I'm going to be able to hear it. If someone's in the living room, I'm going to be able to hear it. Especially if they're moving a 4-foot ceramic statue. It's pretty big and it's going to make noise. And I didn't hear anything. And I was the type of kid that stayed up super late, playing Xbox, just playing games all night. So, I was always there, and I was always aware. This was the time before headsets were a thing, so, I would just hear it from my TV, or I'd have my TV really low. That way my parents wouldn't come in and tell me to go to sleep. And I wouldn't hear anything. So, I would know if somebody moved it. Now, for the longest time, I thought it was my dad. I thought he was moving it to try to scare us. That way we can just get rid of the statue, and he'll be rid of it forever. But there was one event that occurred, and that was when my dad had a business trip. He had it a few towns over, so he left. And it was just me, my mom, and my brother. Now, my mom and my brother are very small. My mom is small, so she would struggle carrying that statue. She probably could carry it, but she would definitely make noise. And my brother was too young, and he wouldn't be able to lift it. My brother was about maybe 4 or 5, and he's not strong enough to lift it. So there was no one else but me that could have moved that statue. And we woke up one morning and we saw it in the kitchen, right in the middle. And my mom was like, wow, my dad was telling the truth the entire time. It wasn't him. And after that, we called my dad and we told him what happened. And we apologized for thinking it was him the entire time. And he told us to get rid of it. So we got the statue and we put it outside next to a tree. And that's usually where the garbage came to pick up whatever garbage we had. So we were hoping that the truck would just take the statue and we'd never see it again. Well, my dad got home, and the garbage usually comes on Thursdays. So my dad got home on Wednesday, and he got home and he saw it outside, and he thanked us for getting rid of it finally, after having it in the house for maybe around 1.5 years, maybe 2 years. And that was that. So we went to sleep that night, and all of a sudden, my dad and my mom woke up because they heard a loud bang outside by the tree. They woke up in a panic. They opened the door. My dad had some guns that he had in a vault. He got one. He took it outside with him just in case, anything occurred. It kind of almost sounded like a gunshot. It didn't sound that strong, but that's kind of the same sound it made. It just wasn't as loud. Now, eventually with all the ruckus and all the sound, me and my brother got up and we ran outside also, even though they told us not to. And we turned on the porch light and we saw that the statue was broken. It was in pieces. And at the bottom, under most of the pieces, there was this red powder that was just there on the floor. And it was a good amount of red powder. My dad was saying that maybe it could have came off the statue, but there was nothing of that color on the statue. So that meant that, there was something inside of it. And we also found these weird leaves that were inside of it. They were like brown leaves. I couldn't really identify them. They weren't from any tree in the area where I lived. So we thought that it was kind of weird. And to be honest, even though we thought it was really creepy, we didn't really think much of it. You know, my dad kind of was traumatized by that, but the rest of us kind of just blew it off. And it wasn't until a few years later, and my neighbor still lives in front of me, by the way. Mary is still there. But a few of my neighbors that have moved away a while back mentioned how they started seeing things and hearing things around the house after the like whatever object my neighbor gave them entered the house. So there was another neighbor who got like this doll, and it wasn't creepy or anything. It just looked like a regular doll, but it was like an ornament. It was kind of to put on a shelf. It wasn't for kids. It wasn't to play with or anything like that. And they said that after they got the doll, they started hearing stuff. They started seeing shadows, and they got rid of it too. They just never told Mary that they got rid of it, but they did. And it's pretty scary to see because when I was a kid, I just kind of blew it off, and I thought that it was just our imaginations or stuff like that. And I found out that my neighbors who'd also received a gift from her were having a similar experience to that. So I don't know what was behind those objects, or I don't know if maybe it was just our minds playing trick on us. I'm not too sure. And the funny thing is that how I mentioned earlier, my neighbor said that she was a witch. She actually came up to us like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I'm much older now. I'm like 23 now, and she told us that she was a witch, and that even though she never did anything on us, that she still apologized for, you know, putting us around that kind of energy and those kind of bad forces. And she's actually a Christian woman now, so she actually changed her life. She admitted to what she did. So, you know, there just maybe, there was something behind those objects, and maybe it wasn't just us, and it wasn't just our imagination, and, you know, it wasn't just our minds playing tricks on us, and we were actually experiencing these things. Story number 3. Now, the next story I'm going to talk about is probably my most traumatic story. I still remember it very clearly, and it still creeps me out just thinking about it. So, ever since this moment, I've always been scared of doppelgangers. And I always find it creepy when I hear scary stories of people that see themselves or they see what they believe to be loved ones, and they're actually not. They can be some sort of dark entity or ghost. Now, growing up, we only had one VCR in the house, and that was always in my parents' room. Now, my parents' room is separated from the rest of us because it was at the end of a long hallway, and there was no other room at the end of that hallway except their room. Now, if we wanted to watch a movie, we would just ask them if we can borrow the VCR, and then we would head over to our drawers and drawers full of VHS tapes and pick out a movie to watch. And I still remember very clearly, I was watching Toy Story 2 that day, which is better than the first one, by the way. Don't at me. And I put in the movie and started watching it like usual. I would watch that movie almost every single day, so I knew it by heart. I knew all the lines, and I would just sit there and watch it for hours and hours and hours. Now, during this time, my mom was cooking dinner. She always made dinner around 6 or 7, and my mom always wore this, like, black apron. And it didn't have anything on it. It was really plain, but she always wore it. And she always also wore sandals in the house. So whenever she came up to you or whenever she was around you, you could hear the little of her sandals dragging across the floor, and that's kind of how you knew that she was around. But yeah, like this is important information that you have to know for the rest of this. Now, about halfway through my movie, I hear a noise at the door, and I turn around and I check, and I see my mom, and she's peeking in, like, but all I can see is her eyes. She's just peeking in, and I remember saying, "Mom, what are you doing?" And my mom just completely got in front of the door so I can see her full body, and she kind of like laughed, and then she ran away really fast, and I was like, what the hell, what is it, what the fuck was that? So I got up, I walked towards the door, and I peeked, and it's a long hallway, by the way, so there's no way she could have gotten down that hallway without me seeing her. You know, I would have seen her at least at the end of the hallway if she ran full speed. Now, when I saw my mom at the door, she was wearing a green shirt, and I walked towards the kitchen, and she was wearing a blue shirt, and she had the apron on. There was no way that she was going to be able to get to the end of the hall, into the kitchen, change shirt, and put on an apron. There was just no way. There was not enough time. And I asked her, "Mom, what were you doing?" And she said, "What do you mean?" And I'm just like, "I just saw you, like, peek into the room and then laugh and run away." And she's like, "How can that be me if I'm right here and I'm cooking? Like, there's no way I could have gone over there." And, you know, my mind was blown because I saw my mom. And to this day, I still don't know what it is. After this event, we had a priest pray for the house, which got rid of most of the events that occurred until actually recently that they started popping up again. But to this day, I still don't know what I saw. And if that is an entity or a demon or something, it was pretty much just playing tricks on me and taking the form of my mom, which is usually, the most loved thing that anybody loves in their, in their childhood. Growing up, it's either your mom or your dad, and sometimes it can be your grandma, but, those are usually the top things that, a child loves. So taking the form of that is just evil. And after that, I kind of always had a fear of doppelganger stories. And just a side note, I actually run into one person that a lot of people say looks like me. I've been with my friend, with my girlfriend, and we see this one person. And my girlfriend said that he resembles me. He doesn't look exactly like me, but he does resemble me to a point. And I see him everywhere. I see him in every store. I see him like at Walmart. I see him at other grocery stores, at the mall. And I mean, it's not like I see him every time I go out, but I see him like at least once or twice every month or every 2 months. And I've even gone out of town and I see him, and that's incredible odds. But the weird thing is that I never see him talking, and he's always by himself, and he's always running to something. He's never just standing there, or he's never with the family or with anybody else. He's always running. He's always running towards something, and I never know what it is. And while this can be a coincidence, and it could be just really, really weird odds that I just happen to see this dude everywhere, it kind of takes me back to the story that I just told you, and it creeps me out to a point because I feel like, just imagine seeing yourself. I don't know if any of you have seen the movie Us recently that came out, but that movie looked terrifying to me, and I saw it, and it was creepy because that's what I'm scared of, and I've seen stuff like that. So hopefully this is just a person that I've just happened to run into. Hopefully it's not anything evil, but I just thought I should mention it, especially after mentioning the story about my mom. But yeah, guys, those are my paranormal experiences, and I guarantee you that these are 100% true. These are things that have happened in my life. I have a good number more of these, so I'll let you all decide if you all like this or not, and if you guys do, I'll tell you more. But yeah, I mean, we honestly don't know, what's going on. Sometimes we walk into houses and we don't know their past or their history, and there might just be something lurking that we're just not aware of, and something that we have to fight, whether it be with positive spirits or with religion or whatever you personally feel would help you achieve and get over this obstacle. Also, I'm sorry I didn't put a lot of pictures in this. I just kind of wanted to make it more personal, make it not about what you see, but what you hear. I wanted y'all to imagine whatever I was telling you guys, and I hope y'all enjoyed it. Anyways, guys, thank you. Make sure to leave a like down below and hit that sub button if you haven't already. Also, be sure to share my channel with friends. That way my channel can grow and I can tell these stories to more people, since I know a lot of people like a good paranormal story, and it would really help out my channel. And I know a lot of you have done that already, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I do want to make this channel grow, give you guys better content, and I just love anything that has to do with paranormal. And even though a lot of these experiences are pretty traumatic for me, I feel like these things are what made me love the paranormal, and that's kind of how it started. So even though they are kind of negative, I try to see it in a positive way, and they did change my life for the better, I think, since I just love scary things. I love sinister stories, if you will. And I know a lot of you guys like it too. So thank you guys for sticking with me till the end of the video. Be sure to comment down below if you want me to cover a certain topic, or if you want me to continue with more of these scary stories that I have experienced. Other than that, I will see you all in the next one, guys. Stay safe out there.